Welcome to the character editor migration video from version 10 to version 11. This video is intended for all users with a project already running with version 10 and want to migrate it, except for the users who have made too many and too extensive changes to the base blueprints in this folder. If you've only made subtle changes, maybe to the data assets, then you can keep going and the migration will cover those in a minute. If you've made changes to the ECDA collection enum and the anatomy enum, you can keep those as well. I show you as well how to migrate those. If you have not already set it up, I strongly recommend you revision control like Perforce to keep track of all the changes we make during the migration. Since this update replaces the old enumeration files ECDA collection and eAnatomy with new gameplay text, I've prepared a few examples on how your customization data assets might be structured right now. The first example is in the character parts folder with original CDAs totally untouched. The next example is the shirt long sleeve asset where you might have added a new collection or changed the display name or something else. The next example is the custom pullover, a totally new CDA that you might have added to the character parts folder. Then the next example is additional polyphoria content, the mage pack that you might added to your project, and a custom character parts folder where you organize your own customization data assets. And the next example is that all these customization data assets have a new enumeration value for the collections that is not part of the original CDA collections. So here we have added this value. And you can also migrate the eAnatomy enum as well when you added their new values. To prepare the migration, we now need to backup those assets that have changed. I close this editor and go here. So in the background I have some explorers prepared. On the left side you can see the character editor version 11 assets that you can download from web. Don't get distracted by this Unreal Engine 5.4 name in here. This tutorial also works with 5.5 and 5.6 and hopefully future Unreal Engine versions that have not been released yet. I recommend you to create a blank project with these assets because it's easier to migrate with replacing the original assets on the upper right corner you see here. This is the project that I've just opened in Unreal Engine. And on the bottom right corner you see a backup folder where we just copy assets right now. So in the original project that you want to migrate, go to your content character editor in the character parts folder. So in our case we use the data assets examples that I showed you in the Unreal Engine. So here this is the shirt long sleeve asset and the custom pullover I want to backup. I paste them in here. And if you've made changes to the enumeration files in the base folder, you have also to backup those. Now you can backup additional content that you want to save and afterwards close the editor. Then go to the character editor folder and simply delete base character parts standalone. Afterwards you go to the new version 11 content and copy those files over. So since the version 11 uses gameplay tags, we also have to go to the core folder in the config, and in your in the version 11 project you have the default gameplay tags, which contains this line, restricted config files and import tags from config true. If you don't have this file in your project yet, you can just simply copy this. Otherwise you need to add those lines. And here in the text folder you have the character editor base ini, which contains all the core gameplay tags character editor, anatomy, some special gameplay tags, then concrete anatomies, human and meta-human, collections, and so on. And you have the character editor where you have collections for additional content. So first we copy this text folder and paste it in here. Then we go into this folder of the project to migrate and open the character editor ini file in here. Search for example, the mage pack that we use in our migration tutorial, and add another line for all the other collections that you want to use in your project. For example, here now this casual wear. Save the file, and afterwards go back to the main folder, content, character, and character parts, and restore your assets that you just backed up. For example, these. Go in here, and for the enumeration values, they go in base enumerations. And afterwards, go to the main folder and start the project again. As soon as the project is open, you can go to the character parts folder and copy the DT gameplay tag meta default asset to the first content pack that you have in your project. And we start with the mage pack, rename it properly, then open the asset and remove all the rows except one of the collections. And here we want to rename it matching the project or matching the gameplay tags that you might want to use. In here we can now select the character editor collection and mage and give it a display name of mage. This is used for UI. Then we can close this asset, open the package file, and assign this data table here to the gameplay tag meta. And save this asset as well. Then we can copy this asset to the next character parts folder, rename it matching to the character parts name. Open it, and this time we have the casual wear collection. Casual wear, so the collection does not always need to match the character parts folder, and we can select it here and give it a beautiful display name, this time with a space in it. Close it and assign it to the package. Next, you want to go to the base data tables folder and find the DT collection enum gameplay tag map. Here you want to add all collections that are in your project. In our case, it's mage and casual wear. And for the collection enum and collection gameplay tag, choose the proper values. Mage, and here it's casual wear and casual wear. Save the file. This is responsible for the CDA migration later on. If you have anatomies changed, then you find also a similar table, anatomy enum gameplay tag map, where you can add your anatomy and proper gameplay tags as well. And the third table, anatomy gameplay tag map, is responsible to split the whole anatomy gameplay tag into race, gender, and generation gameplay tags, which are used by the profile manager and other selections. Then you have to make sure that in the plugins you have the editor scripting utils activated. This is usually activated if you use MetaHumans nowadays. We can finally migrate our customization data assets. Go to Editor Utility Widgets, find the Character Editor Tools, and right-click Run Editor Utility Widget. I move it to the bottom to give it some space. On the top left corner you can read the status Customization Data Assets must be loaded. Press the Load CDAs button, and now you can see 3 rows appear. character parts, custom and mage. And if you hover the rows, you can see in which folders those packages are registered. The T column displays you the number of total CDAs. The green check mark displays you the valid numbers. The slightly darker green displays valid debug assets. And the other check mark is for valid except cosmetic switches, validation for display name and for thumbnails. Then you have the warning columns and the error columns. Now we want to check the warnings of the CDAs. Click on character parts, apparel, upper body, where the warnings are, and see the custom pullover, which is our own CDA from the old project, which does not have any gameplay tags for anatomies and collections. And down here there's a shirt long sleeve, which also has no anatomy and collections. Furthermore, you can see it in your custom package, where all the assets don't have any gameplay tags, and the content pack from Polyphoria as well. Which gameplay tags are missing, you can see if you click on upper right settings and show duplicated enums. Now you get a new column next to the gameplay tag anatomies and collections and see which were there. Here you can see default and casual wear and so on. If you have more CDAs than in our example, you may want to use the filters to get rid of the valid CDAs. This way you can expand character parts, for example, and only see the warnings, and also in the other categories. To now migrate the gameplay tags, you have the corresponding button in the top right corner, which now would migrate 47 CDAs in total. If you have played around with the filters, for example in the CDA classes, and disabled hands, for example, it says 35 in the button. Now it will tell you why it only would migrate to 35, because of the CDAs are hidden by the filters. Just unhide it, and there you go. Before you press the migrate button, as a short reminder, it's good to have revision control, because the migration also checks out the files after being saved. No further ado, you can click the button and wait for all the CDAs to migrate. Well, to not show you the perfect scenario, I think, yes, I forgot the Fantasy Armor collection in the Mage pack. To simply fix this, go to the Mage pack, data table, gameplay tag meter, and add the new row in there. Fantasy Armor. And in the gameplay tag, we don't have this gameplay tag yet, but you can also, additionally to the ini file, add this subtag in here, Fantasy Armor, and save it to the character editor ini or other ini files where you want to save it. And afterwards you can select it, give it a nice display name, and don't forget the data tables collection enum gameplay tag map, where you can add the new row Fantasy Armor. Select the Fantasy Armor enum and the Fantasy Armor collection. Save this table as well. And afterwards hit the migrate button again, and now you're good to go. Reactivate the valid filters, and now you can see all the CDAs are migrated successfully. To go into the details, click on character parts, upper body, and see here our pullover is migrated successfully, and the shirt long sleeve has also the default and casual wear collections. The custom pack is also migrated successfully, and the mage is also migrated. But you can also see here, because I missed the Fantasy Armor and it migrated already the mage enum value to the gameplay tag, it does not migrate again if the gameplay tag is already present. But here you can click the link and open the gameplay tag and add the Fantasy Armor gameplay tag afterwards. Also here, Armor, and just hit the reload button, and now you can see it's totally fine. The order doesn't matter. Here it's Fantasy Armor and Mage, and here it's Mage and Fantasy Armor, but it doesn't matter. Also in the future you don't need the enum values anymore. After successfully migrating, you can also click the settings and disable the Show Deprecated enums button, and are good to go. As an additional info, we updated the customization profile to version 11 as well, but don't be afraid, we did not update that much, but the anatomy enum was replaced with anatomy gameplay tags. For example, the anatomy profiles table has their default customization profile metadata anatomy set to gameplay tag values. The preset customization profiles also got their metadata anatomy set to gameplay tag values. And save game files that we store during development or potentially for deployed builds get migrated automatically. For this we have blueprints, libraries, function library, an upgrade. We also added the version 10 to version 11 function that just takes the old profile and maps an enum similar to our migration button in the CDA manager to the new gameplay tag. If you have stored customization profiles in arrays in the old format, in the version 10 structure, or stored them in databases, you have to migrate those manually. And finally, you can start using the character editor again and enjoy its new features. Feel free to drop a line if any questions arise, and have fun with the product. Thanks for watching.